Bernie Sanders didn't come to play. In a tense Senate hearing, he put Linda McMahon, the Trump Secretary of Education, on the hot seat with one of the simplest, most important questions in America. Why are our teachers paid so little?
When we talk about education, kind of we're looking at it in a vacuum. We're talking about the struggles that low-income kids are having, and that's true. But Mrs. McMahon, you are also aware that in America we have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had before. You are aware that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. You are aware, I suspect, that teachers are dealing with kids who are literally homeless, kids who come from dysfunctional families where there is violence. Does it concern you in America that we are living in a society where the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck? And how do you think that impacts our educational system?
Thank you very much, Senator, for that question. First of all, let me say that I believe that teaching is one of the most noble professions that we have in our country, and we have so many good, dedicated teachers to help our students. I do think that we are trapping students often in low-performing schools, and that's why the president has such a strong policy towards school choice.
But you will agree, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you will agree that you can't just look at education. The truth is that middle class, upper middle class public schools in America generally do pretty well. But if you are homeless, if you were a homeless person and you had kids, the odds of your kids doing pretty well are not good. I'm just asking you, what do you think about the massive level of income and wealth inequality, the fact that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty? Is that something you think you might want to pay attention to?
Well, certainly, Senator, I do believe that we want to make sure that every child in our country has the opportunity to have equal access to a quality education. And the Department of Education really is not setting economic policy in the country.
Well,
we should focus on educating our children, and we should focus on it at the local level.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned correctly that we have many great teachers in America, right?
Yes.
If you as a businesswoman wanted to attract the best and the brightest, would you be starting them off after they leave school, maybe $50,000, $60,000 in debt with salaries of $35,000 or $40,000? Or would you say, we respect, you talked about teaching being the noblest profession. I agree with you. Would you agree with me, support my legislation that says no teacher in America should earn at least $60,000 a year?
Well, certainly the pay to teachers is up to the states where those teachers reside. I do believe we should pay our teachers fairly. They spend so much time with our students, and they should be well compensated for their job.
Paying them fairly, nobody in the world will disagree with you. I mean, the question is, if teaching is a noble profession, if teaching is an important profession, you know, should we be paying them salaries commensurate with the value that of the work that they are doing? So I'm asking you a simple question. Would you recommend to states, as the leader of education in America, that teachers at least make $60,000 a year?
I would certainly recommend to states that teachers be paid what is commensurate with the kinds of jobs that are part of their states. Not all states have the same living costs. Not all states have the same ability to pay teachers, but to attract really good teachers and to keep them, we should definitely pay them commensurate with the job performance that they are undertaking.
Millions of young people, low-income people, are finding it very difficult to afford to go to college, and they're leaving school $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in debt. Pell Grant program provides assistance to over 7 million low-income young people in this country. Can you guarantee to us, if you are made a Secretary of Education, that no student in America will lose their Pell Grant as the department is dismantled?
Surely the defunding is not the goal here. The continuation of Pell Grants, I'd actually even like to see an expansion of Pell Grants. I'd like to see short-term certificates for Pell Grants for students who aren't going on to four-year universities, who could have the opportunity to use Pell Grants for skill-based learning.
All right, so what I'm hearing you say is Pell Grant program will continue under your administration?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Cassidy asked you an important question, and that is, do you agree, and let me just once again get your feelings on this, that if there is a movement to abolish the Department of Education, it has to go through the United States Congress?
Yes, it is set up by the United States Congress, and we work with Congress. It clearly cannot be shut down without it.
Good. Thank you.
Senator.
Sanders didn't just focus on school policy. He zoomed out to show the bigger picture. He laid out plainly how income inequality, child poverty, and systemic neglect all bleed into the classroom. And he reminded everyone that when we talk about struggling students, we're also talking about overworked teachers, many of whom are trying to lift up children facing homelessness, hunger, and trauma, all while living paycheck to paycheck themselves. McMahon, nominated by Trump to oversee the nation's education system, gave the usual glossy answers. Teaching, she said, is a noble profession. We should respect teachers. We should pay them fairly. But when Bernie pressed her over and over for a real number, for a real commitment to raising teacher salaries to at least $60,000 a year, she ducked behind the same excuse politicians have been using for decades. That's up to the states. Sanders wasn't having it. If you're a businesswoman, he asked her, would you attract top talent by paying them $35,000 a year while burdening them with tens of thousands in student debt? Would you call that a strategy for excellence or a setup for failure? Because that's what we're doing. And every parent, teacher, and student in America knows it. And the truth is, this isn't just about salaries. It's about values. We call teaching one of the most important jobs in our society, but we treat it like charity work. We ask teachers to do everything, educate, counsel, manage crises, and then send them home with a paycheck that barely covers rent. McMahon's answer? Some version of, well, it's complicated. But that's not leadership. That's avoidance. Sanders then turned to another issue that defines educational opportunity in this country, Pell Grants. With millions of low-income students relying on them to afford college and Trump allies pushing to dismantle the Department of Education entirely, Bernie asked for a guarantee that those students wouldn't be left behind. McMahon said she'd continue the Pell Grant program, even hinted at expanding it to include skill-based training. And while that sounds good on paper, let's not forget, this is the same administration that has repeatedly proposed gutting federal education funding. Words are not promises, and promises are not policy. What Bernie made clear in this hearing, through every question, every follow-up, is that we cannot pretend to care about education while letting inequality and political neglect rot the system from within. We cannot call teaching noble while paying teachers less than plumbers, and we can't expect better outcomes for kids while ignoring the economic chaos many of them are born into. So here's the real question. What country do we want to be? One that rewards billionaires and neglects educators, or one that finally puts its money where its values are? If you believe teachers deserve more than just applause, if you believe every child, no matter their zip code, deserves a chance, then let's stop letting politicians talk in circles. Let's demand real answers. Let's raise our voices louder than their excuses. Drop a comment. Should every teacher in America earn a minimum of $60,000 a year? Smash that like button if you're tired of political doublespeak. And if you want more honest, unflinching coverage of the fights that matter, subscribe to The Liberal Lens. We're not done holding power to account, and with your voice, we're only getting louder.